On a sweltering day in 1954, a young man named Elvis Presley stepped into Sun's studio, a small, unassuming place in Memphis that would soon become the birthplace of rock and roll. Few could have predicted the seismic shift he would bring to music, culture, and society. Sam Phillips, the studio's owner, remembered Elvis as an introverted soul, uncomfortable in the spotlight, yet harboring a unique talent. He was probably the most introverted person that ever came into that studio, Phillips recalled. He tried not to show it, but you could tell he felt inferior. He reminded me of a black man in that way, markedly insecure. Phillips hired two musicians, Scotty on guitar and Bill Black on bass, to back Elvis. Their first meeting was awkward. Elvis showed up dressed in a lace shirt and pink pants, which was far from the rugged image one might associate with a burgeoning rock and roll star, but Phillips saw potential. He scheduled another session, more of an experiment, without bringing in extra musicians. During this first session, Elvis hesitated when asked what to sing. He was not used to venturing beyond the familiar. After some discussion, they chose Harbor Lights, a song from 1950 by Bing Crosby. It was a strategic choice, an attempt to hide Elvis's true capabilities. But Elvis was too restrained, too inhibited to unleash the raw emotion that lay within him. Phillips, however, was patient. He let them experiment with a few ballads, his encouragement helping Elvis to gradually relax. Then, something miraculous happened. During a break, Elvis started playing with an old blues tune by Arthur "Big Boy" Crudup, singing "That's All Right, Mama" in a high-pitched, nervous shout. It was raw, energetic, and full of life. Phillips recognized immediately what he had stumbled upon. He stopped Elvis mid-sentence, turned on the tape recorder, and captured this moment of pure, unbridled talent. In that moment, Elvis broke free from his self-imposed constraints. The music that burst forth was a blend of country, blues, rhythm and blues, and gospel, a unique sound that defied easy categorization. It was infectious, raw, and full of an energy that had been hidden behind Elvis's introverted exterior. This was not just music, it was a fusion of styles, a reflection of Elvis's own mixed heritage and his willingness to explore and blend different musical traditions. Sam Phillips understood the significance of this moment. He knew that Elvis was not just following a conventional path, but was making a bold leap into uncharted territory. Elvis himself was not consciously seeking to create something new, he just wanted approval and recognition. But in that moment of relaxed creativity, he unleashed a sound that would change the world. The recording of "That's All Right" was more than just a song, it was a cultural earthquake. It combined elements of country storytelling, blues's emotional depth, and the rhythmic intensity of gospel music. Elvis's high-pitched voice and energetic performance brought a freshness to the music scene, one that captivated listeners and set the stage for a revolution. As news of the recording spread, Memphis was electrified. The song defied genre boundaries, appealing to both black and white audiences in a way that was unprecedented. People were drawn to its raw energy, its authenticity, and its sheer joy. Elvis had crossed a line that few white artists dared to tread, to embrace and reinterpret black musical traditions. This bold move was not without controversy. In an era where racial segregation was the norm, Elvis's music was seen as a bridge between worlds. He was expressing a shared experience, one that resonated deeply with the working-class South, both black and white. His music was a reflection of their common struggles and joys, a sound that spoke directly to their hearts. Elvis's influence went beyond just the music. He became a symbol of a shared cultural identity, one that transcended racial divides. His ability to blend different musical styles and his willingness to take risks set a new standard for artists. In doing so, he opened doors that would allow future generations to explore and celebrate the rich tapestry of American music. That first session at Sun Studio was just the beginning. Elvis Presley had ignited a fire that would spread across the nation, forever changing the landscape of music and culture. His story is one of an introverted young man who found his voice, not despite his insecurities, but because he dared to let it shine. As Elvis stepped into the spotlight, the focus was not on his appearance, but on the electrifying sound emanating from him. In those early days, Sam Phillips, the man behind Sun Records, had no idea how Elvis would present himself on stage. Elvis had acne and a cowlick, and he often stammered. At first, he was petrified. When he performed at Overton Park in Memphis, nerves got the best of him. He shook so much that his whole body vibrated, and his lips twisted into an unintentional sneer. The screaming girls were not mocking him, they were caught up in the raw energy of his performance. They didn't realize at first that his pants were shaking like laundry in the wind, but Elvis soon caught on. He started to move more deliberately, and the girls screamed even louder. Elvis found his inspiration in Big Chief Jim Wetherington, a singer in his favorite gospel group, the Statesmen. Jim had a way of moving that made women go wild. Elvis started to let loose, rotating his left leg and letting his body react to the music. His inhibitions broke, and he found his groove. As he toured the South with Scotty and Bill, Elvis discovered his true self on stage. He was full of sexual energy, but off stage he was polite and insecure. He craved approval and was deeply attracted to young women, a mix that made him a force to be reckoned with. Elvis was a natural showman, spontaneous and connected to his audience. He knew what they wanted and delivered it with a rebellious flair. His early performances were often crude, filled with off-color jokes and lewd gestures. He was uninhibited, throwing decorum away with a mix of teenage energy and country innocence. His long pompadour hair and colorful outfits set him apart. He played his guitar with such intensity that he often broke the strings, a testament to his passion. Backstage, he'd cool off with a splash of cold water, feeling the rush of power and freedom. Scotty Moore described Elvis as a young stud at a rodeo. After each show, Elvis would be exhausted but exhilarated. He'd stand behind a table at the stage door, kissing every girl who approached and running his hands over them. He had a playful, almost mischievous way with the audience. Once he saw a girl talking on a telephone booth and, without hesitation, grabbed her by the breast. She slapped him, but it only added to the excitement. Elvis loved the reaction he got from the girls. He'd walk on stage, wiggle a bit, or move his hand, and they would squeal with delight. He had a unique way of playing with his audience, often saying, "I'm gonna do what I want first, then what you want." Elvis's movements were quick and full of purpose. He'd bend his knees fast and then stop, freezing for a moment to maximize the effect. His gestures were simple but powerful, designed to elicit a reaction. Sometimes he'd just stand there, roaring along with the music, before freezing again to taunt the crowd. It was a performance style born from a place of pure energy and a desire to connect with his fans. As Elvis's fame grew, so did his confidence. He started to experiment more with his stage presence, pushing boundaries and defying expectations. His unique blend of music and showmanship created an unforgettable experience for those lucky enough to see him live. Elvis wasn't just a singer, he was a force of nature, leaving an indelible mark on the world of music and performance. Elvis Presley's dancing style was special. He could move his body in ways that seemed almost magical. His fingers could bend backward like a rubber band. When he moved, it was like a mix of surprise, fun, and a deep sensuality. It was as if his body had a life of its own. Elvis would play with his leg as if it were independent, kicking it out at funny angles and watching it spin like a top. This way of moving had deep roots. It came from African American dance and work songs. In the old days, African workers didn't use machines or animals to lift heavy things. They did it all with their strong bodies. They would spread their legs wide, bend their knees, and rock back and forth to lift heavy loads. This rhythm became part of the blues and dance in African American communities. Elvis took this movement and turned it into part of his performance style. He wasn't just copying, he was honoring the rich culture from which it came. By doing so, he was connecting with the African American community and breaking down barriers between races through music. His audience, mostly white Southerners, felt this connection too. They saw in Elvis a rebellion against hard work and a celebration of freedom through music. Elvis was deeply influenced by black musicians like Arthur Crudup. He admired their power and wanted to reach that level of greatness. Despite his love for the music, Elvis sometimes felt uneasy about performing it. Being a white man in the South performing black music was controversial. Yet he pressed on, knowing he was creating something new and powerful. His journey wasn't easy. Even early in his career, Elvis faced rejection. A radio station in his hometown refused to play his music at first because it was considered race music. But a man named Sam Phillips helped him get a chance to perform on the Grand Ole Opry, a big deal for any musician. Even then, Elvis wasn't sure if he belonged in country music, feeling it didn't fully capture his unique sound. Despite these doubts, Elvis kept moving forward. He knew he couldn't just fit into one genre. His music was a mix, but it was his own mix. He didn't want to be confined to what others expected of him. This determination led him to create rock and roll, a new sound that shook the world. Elvis's conversation with Ernest Tubb, another country music star, shows his uncertainty. Tubb advised him to make money first and then do what he loved. This advice reflects a common struggle artists face, balancing commercial success with personal passion. Elvis wasn't just chasing fame, he was genuinely in love with the music. Even when things didn't go as planned, like his initial performance on the Opry, Elvis learned and adapted. He kept his dreams alive, never fully giving up on his vision. He wanted to be more than just a passing craze, he wanted to leave a lasting impact. In the end, Elvis didn't set out to be an innovator, but that's exactly what he became. His unique style and fearless approach to music changed the world. He showed that music could bridge divides and bring people together. Through his dance, his voice, and his unwavering spirit, Elvis Presley left an indelible mark on music history. His legacy reminds us that true art comes from the heart, and sometimes the most unexpected sounds can change the world.